Hi, friends. Tonight we're going to ease into something a little tender, a little true, and very, very sleepy. Picture this. Your shoes are off, but your feet still hurt. The room is finally quiet, but your thoughts are not. You've answered every message, checked every box, smiled when you didn't feel like it, and now? Now you're just done. You probably won't survive this one. I mean, not because anything dramatic is going to happen, but because halfway through, your brain might just say, "Nope, we're out," and drift off. And honestly, that's kind of the goal. So before you get too comfy, take a moment to like the video and subscribe to the channel, but only if you truly enjoy what we do here. And hey, drop a comment with where you're listening from and what time it is. I promise I'll read it when I'm not also trying to stay awake. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey. You've dragged yourself through another exhausting day and your body feels like it's made of wet cement. It started earlier than you wanted. The alarm wasn't gentle, your coffee wasn't strong enough, and someone at work said, "Quick question," like they were casting a curse. You tried to power through, smile through, zoom through. But even the small things felt heavier today, like trying to walk through syrup. It's the kind of tired that sleep doesn't always fix. And it's not just your muscles, it's deeper, a soul tired. The kind of weariness that settles behind your eyes, like it's been collecting rent there. And now that the day is done and the lights are low, there's this question floating in the back of your mind: does it ever really get better? Jesus once said, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." You've probably heard that before, maybe on a sticker, a t-shirt, or your aunt's fridge magnet. But tonight, you're wondering if he actually meant it. Because let's be honest, if he did, where is that rest? Back in ancient Rome, people believed sleep was controlled by Somnus, the god of slumber. His temple was covered in poppies and vines, and only those who truly sought peace could find the entrance. Kind of poetic, right? But also hilarious when you think about it. Imagine needing a whole divine temple just to get 8 hours of sleep. And yet, here you are. Not in a temple, not under poppies. Just in your bed, possibly clutching a snack you swore you wouldn't eat after 10 p.m., staring into the dark and hoping your brain will shut up. Historians still argue whether medieval monks actually slept in 2 shifts, rising in the middle of the night to pray, then going back to bed. Some say it was holy discipline. Others think they were just chronically exhausted like the rest of us. Either way, those monks had something right. They treated the night as sacred. You haven't done that in a while, have you? You've treated night like a dumping ground for everything you didn't have finished during the day. "I'll deal with it later," you say, and later becomes midnight. But tonight is different. Tonight, you're not going to solve everything. You're not going to hustle or grind or fix. You're going to receive something. That's the uncomfortable part, because you're good at giving, at trying, at earning. But rest? That's a gift. You don't have to deserve it. Somewhere in the background, a gentle voice, maybe not audible, but felt, is whispering, "You can lay it down now," your jaw unclenched, your shoulders dropped, your chest rising and falling with the kind of rhythm that reminds you you're still here, you're still loved, you're still invited into rest. Did you know that in ancient Egypt they used crocodile dung as sunscreen? I'm not saying you're having that kind of day, but if you've been trying to protect yourself in strange ways, overthinking, shutting down, numbing out, you're not alone. We all reach for weird shields when we're tired. Jesus doesn't mock your shields. He just gently offers you something better. And maybe you don't feel spiritual right now. Maybe you feel like a soggy toaster, waffle burnt on the outside, cold in the middle. That's okay. Jesus never asked you to be a glowing orb of enlightenment before showing up. He just said, "Come." Not clean yourself up, not try harder, not get it together. Just come. Even now, in this very moment, without fixing anything, you are already enough to be held. Take a breath. Let your jaw relax again. It's probably trying to clench up while you're re-listening to this. Let your tongue fall from the roof of your mouth. Let your spine remember it's not a coat rack. The rest you long for, I sent found in the next vacation or the perfect mattress or finishing your to-do list. It is found in the presence of someone who I sent asking you for anything right now. Someone who walked dusty roads, cried when his friends died, and slept in a boat during a storm. Someone who knows this kind of tired and promises something better. So maybe you don't need one more miracle. Maybe you just need to remember the one who sat by wells, looked people in the eyes and said, I see you. Tonight he sees you. The lights are dim now. Your breathing has slowed. Somewhere in your mind, the hamster wheel is creaking to a stop. You're not failing for feeling like this. You're human. And humans were designed to rest. Not just as a physical reset, but as a spiritual surrender. A way of saying, I trust that the world will keep spinning even if I stop trying to hold it up, and it will. It always does. And you? You will wake up tomorrow just a little lighter, a little clearer, and maybe with a heart that remembers you're not alone in this. You've tried sleep, Netflix, caffeine, and pretending you're fine yet the tiredness never leaves. Let's not lie to ourselves. You've become an expert at distracting your exhaustion. You've microdosed dopamine through reels, scrolled until your thumb went numb, and even tried that one sleep meditation with ocean waves and a whispery guy named Craig. And still, you wake up feeling like a half-charged phone at 3%. There's a difference between shutting your eyes and actually resting. You know this. Your body's been in bed, but your soul's been running laps. It's wild how you can sleep for 8 hours and still feel like you've been hit by a theological freight train. Because soul exhaustion isn't fixed with sleep. It needs something deeper, something that gets under the skin, into the bones, and whispers to the ache behind your ribs. It's okay. You can stop now, but stopping is hard. Especially when you're trained to keep going. In 1960, a social psychologist named John B. Calhoun created a utopia for mice, plenty of food, water, no predators, and still the mice eventually fell apart. They stopped caring for their young, stopped mating, some even forgot how to nest. He called it behavioral sync. Historians still argue whether Calhoun's mouse world says something about us, but come on. If mice crack under pressure with free snacks and no bills, maybe you're not weak. Maybe you're just overwhelmed in a system that never stops demanding. And so you do what humans do. You try to power through. You buy better pillows. You switch to matcha. You meditate to lo-fi beats and tell yourself that next weekend you'll actually rest. But rest isn't something you schedule. It's something you surrender to, which is terrifying. Because surrender means letting go of your mental tabs, your emotional alarms, your deeply held belief that if you stop, everything will fall apart. Spoiler alert, it won't. The world doesn't spin because of your hustle. It spins because a creator set it into motion and hasn't stopped holding it since. There's this ancient Hebrew concept called nuach. It means to settle in, to be still, to dwell. It's used in Genesis when God rested, not because he was tired, but because everything was complete. That word wasn't just about stopping, it was about presence. And you've been present for everyone but yourself lately. You've held space for others. You've shown up to the things. You've clapped at the right moments. And now your soul's sitting in the corner, arms crossed, saying, cool story. When's it my turn? Well, now this is your turn. You don't have to solve anything tonight. You don't have to be on. You can just exist and be held by the one who isn't overwhelmed by your overwhelm. That's the weird part, right? You're exhausted, but you still feel guilty for resting. As if your worth is measured by productivity. As if Jesus is standing with a checklist, shaking his head like a disappointed manager. But news flash, he's not. He's the one who walked into chaos and brought peace. Not by fixing everything instantly, but by being with people in the mess. He didn't wait for storms to pass before climbing into the boat. He got wet, tired, and hungry just like you. Did you know that Thomas Edison believed sleep was a waste of time? He trained himself to nap in tiny bursts and thought nighttime rest was a failure of efficiency. Ironically, he died with over 1,000 patents, but was often seen nodding off mid-conversation. Even geniuses crash. You're allowed to crash too, but not in shame and comfort. Right now, Jesus isn't watching you with disappointment. He's gently drawing closer. He's the calm breath in the room, the warmth under your blanket, the hush that says, you can let go. And letting go doesn't mean giving up. It means handing over what was never yours to carry alone. It means acknowledging that your heart has been holding too many tabs open, and it's okay to press close all. Remember that one trivia bit about crocodile dung sunscreen? Well, here's another. In the Victorian era, people believed insomnia was cured by wrapping yourself like a mummy in wet bed sheets and waiting for it to steam out the bad energy. Historians still debate if it worked or if people just passed out from discomfort. Either way, you don't need strange rituals tonight. You need presence, peace, permission to stop proving. So here it is, permission granted. Let your eyes close not in defeat but in trust. Let your fingers uncurl, let your breathing deepen. Let your soul stretch out on the mattress and say, finally. You're not a machine with a glitch. You're a person with limits. And Jesus doesn't despise your limits. He designed them. Not so you'd be weak, but so you'd be dependent. Because dependence leads to connection. And connection leads to peace. And peace, well, it starts to feel like rest. Let the silence do what your striving never could. Let grace be louder than your inner critic. Let your tired heart realize the one who holds the universe also holds you, right now, not when you're better, not when you're stronger, not when you're more impressive, just now. And as your body begins to melt into the bed and the tension dissolves like sugar in tea, remember, Jesus isn't asking you to figure anything out tonight. He's just asking you to breathe, to receive, to rest. Tonight, we peek into the silent burdens, guilt, regrets, questions you tuck under your pillow like a second headrest. It's weird, isn't it? How bedtime, which should be the most peaceful part of the day, often turns into a low-budget horror movie of your own thoughts. The moment your head hits the pillow, the lights in your brain turn on like it's Broadway opening night. That thing you said 5 years ago? Let's replay that in 4K, that email you forgot to send. Here's a guilt trip trailer. That one time you almost made a decision that could have gone wrong? Let's spiral into a dozen alternate realities. Your mind loves to throw a party when all you want is peace. And the guests of honor? Guilt, what-ifs, and emotional indigestion. But here's the thing. Not every thought that enters your brain deserves a response. You've been acting like your brain is customer service and every passing thought is a complaint you have to address. It's not. Some thoughts just want attention. You don't have to give it to them. Jesus knew we'd struggle with this. He talked about burdens. Not just physical ones, but invisible ones. The kind you don't even have language for yet, the emotional scar tissue. The inner eye rolls, the fear that you're somehow failing at being human. And oh, the guilt, sometimes loud, sometimes subtle, like a quiet voice in your ribs that says, you should have done more. Or the voice that says, you're not as together as they think. Or the one that whispers, God's disappointed in you. Let's pause right there. God's not disappointed in you. Let that sink in like warm tea on a cold night. He's not standing at a distance, arms crossed, waiting for you to explain yourself. He's the one gently reaching under your emotional baggage and saying, let me carry this. In World War II, pilots were often trained to fly, even when exhausted, using caffeine tablets and cold air pumped into their cockpits to stay alert. But fatigue still claimed thousands of missions, not because the enemy struck, but because the body eventually said, "No more." Your soul is saying that too. No more carrying what you weren't made to carry. That regret? It happened. You've repented. You've grieved. Now it's time to let it go. Not ignore it, release it, that mistake. It's not who you are. It's something you did. There's a difference. That should've or could've. It's not helpful fuel. It's expired milk. It only makes you sick when you drink it. Historians still argue whether Judas was doomed from the beginning or if he had a choice all along. But here's what's certain. Peter denied Jesus 3 times and still got restored. Why? Because he came back. That's all Jesus asks. Not perfection return. You're allowed to return again and again and again. Even with the same burdens. Even with the same questions. He doesn't get tired of holding what tires you out. Take a moment. Picture yourself lying in bed. Now imagine a suitcase next to the mattress. Inside, the guilt you never speak out loud. The mistakes you replay like a director who can't move on. The things you wish you could undo. The prayers you whispered half-heartedly because you didn't think he was really listening. Now see Jesus' tired feet, gentle eyes, not in a rush. He reaches down, picks up the suitcase, and simply says, "I've got it." No sermon, no scolding, just presence. And here's a strange but beautiful trivia. In some ancient cultures, people would bury small items under their pillows to absorb bad dreams, bits of iron, herbs, even carved stone faces. The idea was that the object would take the burden while they slept. Jesus doesn't need to sit under your pillow like a dream sponge. He's bigger than that, but the image still works. Because tonight, you don't have to fall asleep gripping everything tight. You can place it literally, symbolically, beside you. The regrets, the shame, the mental list of stuff I didn't do right, place them beside you. Let him hold what you keep clutching. You are not defined by your worst moments or your tiredness or your doubts. You're defined by grace. And grace doesn't make you earn rest, it just gives it. So when the thoughts come, because they will try this, instead of arguing with them, observe them. "Oh, hey, guilt, didn't expect you again. Thanks for the reminder, I'm forgiven. Hello, regret. I see you brought your friend What If. Too bad we're going to bed now. Nice try, anxiety, but Jesus is staying over tonight. He brought peace. Did you know that even in sleep, your brain is processing and healing? It replays memories, trims unneeded connections, stores the ones that matter. Your brain is literally doing spiritual housekeeping while you rest. So sleep isn't wasted time. It's holy time. It's the moment when the noise gets quiet enough for heaven to whisper truth into your subconscious. It's when the mercy that S knew every morning is already preparing to meet you before sunrise. Let that mercy meet you even now. Take one more breath. And as you exhale, imagine every hidden burden slipping off your chest, like a coat that's too heavy and never fit right anyway. You were never meant to sleep with guilt tucked into your ribs. You were meant to sleep held. We revisit the ancient claim. Come to me and I will give you rest. And wonder, what if that wasn't just poetic? You've heard it before. Probably too many times for it to mean much anymore. Come to me. I will give you rest. It sounds like the kind of thing someone would stencil onto a decorative pillow or slide into a well-meaning comment on your overwhelmed Facebook post. Lovely, gentle, forgettable, but let's linger on it for a second. Jesus didn't say, "Come to me and I'll give you answers," or "Come to me and I'll fix everything in 24 hours." He didn't even say, "Come to me and I'll make you feel better." He said, "Rest. It's so simple it feels strange, because you've been trained to chase results, not rest. You've learned to measure your value by how much you produce. how efficiently you heal, how quickly you bounce back. The world claps for comeback stories and shiny transformations, not for stillness, not for softness, not for surrender, but that's exactly what Jesus offers. A different rhythm, a gentler invitation. Come, not strive, not hustle, not fix yourself, just come. Even now, while you're lying here trying to ignore that weird crick in your neck and the to-do list floating somewhere behind your eyelids, yes, whispering the same thing. Come. In the early 1300s, there was a mystic named Meister Eckhart who once wrote, "God is at home. It's we who have gone out for a walk." Historians still debate what he meant, but some say it was about how we spend so much energy searching for peace outside when rest is an inward return. That idea still holds up. You've been walking, running, even trying to get to a place where you finally feel okay. A certain job, a cleaner apartment, a better relationship, a more organized brain. But rest doesn't live out there. It lives in him, and he lives in you. Yeah, I know, that sounds suspiciously spiritual. But let us put it this way. What if the rest you re-hunting for ice and tea about your surroundings changing, but your center shifting? What if rest is about letting your soul exhale? You've spent your whole day inhaling pressure, expectations, interruptions, news alerts. Now, release. You don't have to be brilliant right now. You don't have to say the right things, be productive, or have wise insights into your trauma. You can just be in this exact state. Eyelids fluttering, mouth maybe slightly open. One sock half off, and Jesus still says, "Come." The phrase, "I will give you rest," isn't just comfort, it's a transfer. He's saying, give me your tired, I'll give you peace. It's a divine trade offer, but it's hard to accept, isn't it? Because part of you feels guilty. You think you have to finish all your spiritual homework first. You think rest is a reward, not a right. That only the faithful, the focused, the flawless get access. Nope, rest isn't a trophy for the holy, it's the starting point. Even Jesus rested. And he was, the Son of God. He napped in boats, slipped away from crowds, spent nights on hills under stars instead of stress. He wasn't lazy, he just wasn't enslaved to constant doing, and you don't have to be either. Here's a strange fact. In 18th century France, some doctors believed people could sleep too much and it would weaken the moral fabric. They even prescribed less sleep for people they thought were too emotional. Historians still argue if that was science or just classic French dramatics. But your designer isn't stingy with sleep. He isn't pacing the heavens saying, "Wow, they've been lying down a lot lately. How selfish." No, he's watching you now and whispering, "Finally." Because when you rest, you make space. Space for him to meet you not as a taskmaster, but as a comforter. You're not weak for needing rest. You're human. And more than that, you're his. Imagine the scene. You curled up in bed, surrounded by shadows and sighs. And him near, not far, gently placing his hand over your heart and quieting the storm within. No dramatic sermon, no neon sign. Just presence. Just peace. Remember the moment when Elijah, exhausted and terrified, begged God to take his life? God didn't rebuke him. He sent an angel with food, then told him to sleep twice. That was the first step in Elijah's restoration, not a pep talk, not a miracle, just rest. So tonight, maybe you don't need clarity or solutions or divine thunderbolts. Maybe you just need a God who will sit with you until your breathing slows and whisper, "You don't have to carry this tonight. I've got you." Go ahead, let your jaw loosen. Let your eyes stay closed even when a thought tries to elbow its way back in. Let your soul lean not on your own understanding, but on the arms that have never dropped you. This is the part where everything doesn't suddenly make sense. This is the part where you stop trying to make it make sense. And that's where rest begins. Like the disciples caught in a storm, you've been surviving on autopilot, but what if rest begins in surrender? Let's be honest, you've gotten pretty good at pretending everything's fine. You smile when someone says, "How are you?" Even if your insides are held together by coffee and sarcasm. You get through the day like a robot in business, casual, programmed to nod, scroll, reply, repeat. And it works, sort of, until bedtime. That's when the autopilot powers down and the real version of you starts blinking into consciousness. Not the you with the nice email signature. Not the you who says, "No worries," when you're actually very worried. Just you, the tired, uncertain, tender-shelled version. In Mark chapter 4, Jesus and his disciples are on a boat when a storm hits. Waves crash, the boat fills with water, and the disciples do what any rational human would do, panic like cats in a bathtub. Meanwhile, Jesus is asleep on a cushion in the back. Historians still argue whether he was really asleep or just teaching them something by example. But either way, his message was clear. You don't have to be afraid even when it looks like everything is sinking. But notice what the disciples didn't do first. They didn't stop and say, "Hey, let's trust." No, they freaked out. They said, "Don't you care that we're drowning?" That's a prayer if I've ever heard one. You've prayed that, haven't you? Not in fancy language. Maybe just in a whisper while brushing your teeth or laying in bed staring at the ceiling. "God, do you even see me?" And here's the answer: yes. Even in the storm. Even when you're so used to being strong that you forget how to ask for help. Rest doesn't mean you're quitting. It means you re-choosing to stop rowing for a second and realize Jesus is already in the boat. Here's a weird bit of trivia. The ancient Greeks believed sleep was a miniature death. They even named the god of sleep and the god of death as twin brothers, which doesn't sound relaxing, but it makes a point. Sleep is surrender. It's a tiny trust fall into the unknown, and every night you do it. You crawl into bed, close your eyes, and release control. You don't keep your heart beating. You don't consciously digest your dinner. You just trust your body to keep going while your mind checks out. If you can trust your body that much, why is it so hard to trust God with your soul? Let that question roll around a minute. Maybe it's because the storm feels bigger than the boat. Maybe it's because you've gotten used to doing it all yourself. Maybe it's because surrender feels like defeat and you've been taught never to lose. But with Jesus, surrender isn't losing. It's the gateway to peace. Back in the 1800s, there was a thing called bed rest therapy. Doctors literally prescribed lying in bed for weeks to treat anything from hysteria to heartbreak. Sounds dreamy, until you realize it mostly applied to women who weren't emotionally appropriate. So yeah, problematic. Still, the idea had a strange truth buried inside it. Sometimes the best thing you can do is just stop. So what if tonight, instead of muscling through the storm in your mind, you simply lie back and say, "Okay, God, I'm not okay, but I'm here and I trust you to carry me through the waves." It's not weakness, it's wisdom. Because eventually the storm always calms. The disciples learned that the hard way. They screamed, accused Jesus of not caring, and he still stood up, stretched his human arms, and told the wind to shush, and it did. He didn't shame them. He didn't say, "You really failed that test." He just brought peace, and that's what he's doing now. Not because you've earned it, but because you finally stopped trying to row harder than the waves. Do you feel it? The rhythm of your breath slowing? The tension between your eyes melting? The sense that you're not alone in this boat after all. The storm might still rage around you, but inside, you're learning to rest with him. Remember the whisper you keep hearing, "Come to me." It's not just for the calm, it's for the chaos too. So tonight, go ahead, drop the oars, close your eyes. Let the cushion Jesus is resting on become your own. And sleep not like someone escaping, but like someone held. You start to see that true rest isn't about doing nothing. It's the hardest, most courageous thing you'll do all week. You've been taught that rest is what you do after you've earned it. Clean the kitchen, Finish the work, solve the problem, then and only then you're allowed to sit down. But here's the secret no one tells you. Real rest doesn't wait for permission. It's an act of rebellion against the noise, against the shame, against the idea that your worth is tied to your productivity. Because let's face it, sometimes doing nothing feels harder than doing everything. Rest makes space, and space is where the stuff you've been avoiding starts to bubble up. The insecurities, the questions, the memories you've stuffed into your emotional sock drawer and hoped would stay there forever. That's why rest is brave. It's not lazy, it's not weak, it's not indulgent, it's facing yourself and letting Jesus meet you there. Did you know that Winston Churchill, the famously tough and tireless wartime leader, took long afternoon naps every day even during World War II? He called them his daily renewal. Historians still argue whether it was strategy or just survival, but the man literally ran a nation and still prioritized shutting his eyes in the middle of chaos. If he could nap while Nazi bombs were falling, maybe you can rest even with unread emails. But let's go deeper. You've been praised for being strong, reliable, independent, the one people count on. It feels good, doesn't it? Until you realize that somewhere along the way, being strong turned into never showing weakness. You apologize for being tired. You joke about burnout like it's a personality trait. You silently scream, "I need help," but on the outside, you're chill. You're fine, you're functioning. But functioning isn't the same as living. And Jesus didn't come so you could survive with style. He came so you could rest with security. He's not impressed by your hustle. He's not waiting to be amazed by how well you carry things he never asked you to pick up. He's waiting for you to do the scariest, most radical thing. Stop pushing, stop proving. Stop trying to outrun your humanity. Remember when he told Martha that Mary had chosen the better thing by just sitting at his feet? That wasn't a dig at productivity. It was an invitation to presence. You can sit too, even now. And you don't have to do anything while you sit. This isn't a trick. There's no test. You won't lose gold stars in heaven if you fall asleep in the middle of this. Honestly, Jesus probably loves that. Rest is sacred. Not because it's efficient, but because it's honest. Here's a strange little trivia nugget. In the 1500s, it was fashionable for European nobles to host waking beds, massive canopy beds in public rooms, where guests could pretend to rest while gossiping and sipping wine. It was performative rest, fake chill. And you've done that too. You've said, "I'm resting," while scrolling TikTok, writing mental grocery lists, and wondering if your ex's new girlfriend has better eyebrows. But real rest? It's vulnerable. It says, "I don't have to perform peace, I can receive it." Jesus isn't coming to evaluate your sleep quality or critique your relaxation technique. He's coming to be with you. That's it. That's the whole point. When he walked the earth, he didn't just heal and teach, he lingered. He had meals, took detours, stopped for people who interrupted him. He wasn't in a rush, even when everyone else was. And tonight, he's not rushing you either. You're allowed to lay still. You're allowed to be quiet. You're allowed to be real. It's scary at first, I know. When the silence creeps in, you might feel exposed, like something's missing, but maybe what's missing is nothing. Maybe what you're feeling is the space Jesus has been trying to give you all along. Space to breathe, to cry, if needed, to not be on. And if your mind tries to protest, "But I should be doing something," just smile a little and whisper back, I'm resting. That's something. Let the sacred defiance of stillness settle into your bones. The world won't end while you're quiet. Your value won't expire while you sleep. You don't need to earn tomorrow by exhausting yourself today. Just breathe, in and out. Again, slower now. Feel your weight in the bed. Feel your heartbeat settle. Feel your jaw unclench like it's finally exhaling after a long shift. You're doing it, you're resting, and that friend is holy. Even if your past choices led here, we explore why Jesus doesn't wait for you to fix it before offering peace. You know that feeling when you lie down and suddenly remember all the things you could have done differently? The job you didn't take? The call you didn't return? The habit you didn't kick? The conversation that went sideways 2 years ago and still replays like a bad sitcom rerun? Regret is such a night owl. It waits until you're just about to rest and then whispers, "Hey, remember me?" It tells you that this heaviness you're feeling is your fault. That maybe if you'd made better choices, you wouldn't be this tired. Maybe you deserve to feel this way. And you almost believe it. But here's the truth. Jesus doesn't wait until you've cleaned up the mess to hand you the mop. He walks into the chaos, sits down on your floor, and says, "We'll clean this up together." But first, rest. He's not intimidated by your mistakes. In fact, he seems weirdly drawn to messy people. Think about it, nearly every major person in the Bible had a moment of yikes. David committed murder and adultery. Moses ran from his calling. Peter cut off someone's ear. Paul, literal terrorist before conversion, and yet Jesus called them anyway. He didn't say, "Get your act together, then we'll talk." He said, "Follow me." That invitation didn't come with a background check. It came with open arms. In the 1600s, a Japanese practice called kintsugi emerged, repairing broken pottery with gold, making the cracks part of the art. The broken places weren't hidden. They were highlighted, celebrated. Historians still argue whether the philosophy behind kintsugi was more aesthetic or spiritual. But either way, it speaks to a God who doesn't hide your scars, he transforms them. Maybe tonight, the most spiritual thing you can do is stop disqualifying yourself from rest. Yes, you've made decisions you regret. Yes, some of the weariness you carry was built by your own hands, but rest is not a prize for the perfect. It's a promise for the honest. And you've been honest. Even in your doubt, even in your stumbling, you showed up tonight, didn't you? That counts. God doesn't grade on a curve. He doesn't love you on a performance scale. He already knew you'd mess up, and he came anyway. That's grace. And grace makes space for rest even in the middle of what feels unfinished. Do you know what one of Jesus' last acts was before the crucifixion? He washed feet. Even Judas's feet, let that sit for a moment. He knew betrayal was coming. He knew pain was coming. And still, he chose to kneel, to serve, to soothe. So what makes you think he wouldn't kneel beside your bed tonight? Not to judge, not to remind you of everything you did wrong, but to say, "Let me wash off the road dust. You've been walking a long time. You don't have to earn this moment. You just have to receive it." Like a tired kid who comes inside after a long, messy day and gets tucked in without a lecture. Yes, you might have made the bed you're lying in, but Jesus still sits beside it, still whispers peace over it, still sees you beneath the mistakes, beneath the exhaustion, beneath the layers you've built to look okay. Here's a weird but delightful trivia fact. In medieval Europe, people believed that placing bread under your pillow could absorb sins or bad dreams while you slept. It was called sin bread. They'd toss it in the morning like spiritual febres. Effective? Doubtful, but the impulse makes sense. We all want to offload our mistakes, to put them somewhere else. And tonight you can? You can place them in the hands of the one who already carried them to the cross. No ritual, no magic loaf. Just a whispered, "Jesus, I'm tired, and I don't know how to fix this." And him already responding, "You don't have to. Just rest here a while. The past will not define your tomorrow. Grace does, so breathe." Inhale the mercy that says, "You're not beyond help." Exhale the shame that says, "You should have known better." Let the forgiveness settle into your chest like warm blankets. Let the peace he offers cover every restless part. Because you're not just resting tonight, you're healing. and he's already holding what you thought disqualified you from being held. You start noticing maybe the silence, the insomnia, the ache aren't punishments but invitations. It's 1:17 a.m., and you're staring at the ceiling like it holds secrets. The fan hums. The street light outside casts weird shapes on the wall. You've already scrolled, flipped your pillow, counted sheep, and considered becoming nocturnal, still awake. But maybe, just maybe, you're not being punished. Maybe you're being pursued. Yeah, it sounds dramatic. But think about it, what if the silence isn't a void, it's a doorway? What if the ache you feel isn't something to escape, but something to listen to? Jesus never said, "Come to me, all you who have it together, and I'll give you a round of applause." He said, weary, burdened, sleepless, staring at the wall, tired. This is exactly when he whispers, but we don't always recognize it. We think silence equals absence. But absence of noise doesn't mean absence of God. Some of the most sacred moments in history started with stillness. Moses alone in the desert, staring at a bush. Elijah in a cave, waiting for fire but getting a whisper. Mary alone in her room when the angels showed up. Stillness isn't punishment. It's preparation. Historians still argue whether the biblical silent years, the 400-year gap between the Old and New Testaments, were truly quiet or simply unrecorded. But either way, something was happening beneath the silence. A setup, a stirring, a savior coming. So maybe the silence you're sitting in isn't empty either. Maybe it's a space big enough for your soul to breathe. Maybe it's the place where Jesus gently steps in, not with answers, but with presence. You don't need to fear the quiet. You just need to lean into it. Here's something strange. In ancient China, some poets believed that dreams were journeys the soul took to meet divine wisdom. So they welcomed sleeplessness as sacred, not annoying, not medical sacred. What if your restlessness tonight is an open door? What if the reason sleep hasn't come yet is because God wanted to say something first? Not in thunder, not in lightning. Just a whisper in your spirit, I'm here, even now, especially now. And maybe you're not even sure you believe that. That's okay too. You're allowed to doubt in the dark. Jesus isn't afraid of the questions that keep you awake. In fact, he's already sitting with you in them. Not with charts and graphs to explain your life, but with a steady hand on your back saying, you don't have to know. Just breathe. There's this beautiful phrase in Psalms, he gives sleep to those he loves. But tonight you don't have sleep. So does that mean you're not loved? Of course not. Because sometimes love looks like staying awake with you. Sometimes it looks like Jesus pulling up a chair beside your bed and saying, we don't have to rush this. I'm not in a hurry. He's not fidgeting, not refreshing a heavenly browser, not frustrated with your insomnia. He's just with you, still kind, present, and the ache, that thing under your ribs that you can't name, it might not be something to cure. It might be the holy ground where Jesus meets you. Like when Jacob wrestled the angel all night and limped away with both a wound and a blessing. Maybe your tiredness isn't a problem. Maybe it's the wrestling. And maybe what you walk away with tomorrow will be the mark of someone who met God in the dark. Remember earlier when we talked about monks sleeping in 2 shifts? They called the wakeful hours the watching. Maybe this is your watching? Not just waiting to sleep, but watching for him because he comes in the quiet. Not because you deserve it. Not because you finally prayed the right way. Just because he's near to the weary, he hears even the breath you didn't realize was a prayer. So take one now, in and out. Let the quiet become your sanctuary. Let the ache become your meeting place. Let the night become not something to survive, but something to surrender to. You're not alone in the silence. You never were. You learn to picture Jesus not as a distant rescuer, but as the strong, quiet presence resting right next to you. You've spent most of your life thinking of Jesus as somewhere up there, in the clouds, in church buildings, In old paintings where he looks like he hasn't had a carb since 01 AD, but tonight, let's change the scene. Imagine him not in stained glass, not on a mountaintop, but right here. In your room, on your floor. Maybe sitting cross-legged in yesterday's hoodie, or even closer on the other side of the bed, stretched out, one arm behind his head, just breathing in sync with you. He's not hovering, not judging, he's just here. And somehow, that makes everything a little less heavy. You're not trying to reach for a God behind the stars. You're remembering the one who chose to dwell among us, eat with us, cry with us, rest with us. That image shifts everything. He's not shouting at you from heaven. He's whispering from inches away. Think about it. The same Jesus who calmed storms, healed the blind, raised the dead, also took naps. Glorious, unapologetic naps. Like that moment in the Gospels when he's asleep on the boat. The disciples are full-on panicking, and Jesus is out cold, probably snoring a little, just vibing with the waves. That's not irresponsibility. That's confidence. It's peace so deep that even chaos doesn't shake it. What if that's the kind of rest he wants to share with you? Here's a little-known trivia gem. In medieval monasteries, monks used to sleep in their robes, belts on, shoes by the bed, ready at any moment to rise and pray. They believed rest and readiness could exist together. Historians still argue whether this helped or hindered their sleep, but the idea stuck. You can be at peace and still be prepared. And Jesus? He's the perfect picture of that. Fully at rest, fully in control, never in a rush, never caught off guard. And when he said, "Come to me and I will give you rest," he didn't mean come for a break, then go back to handling life yourself. He meant, come lie beside me, let me carry the weight tonight. Imagine that. Jesus not pacing around your stress, not analyzing your choices, but resting beside you, matching your breath, holding the space. If the Savior of the world could stop and nap, you're allowed to as well. You're allowed to release the mental grip, to not solve everything, to let him be the steady one for a while. And no, he's not going to disappear if you fall asleep mid-prayer. He's not offended when you drift off mid-sentence. That's not disrespect, it's trust. It's like a kid falling asleep on their parent's shoulder halfway through a story. The parent doesn't get mad, they smile, they pull the blanket tighter. Jesus is pulling the blanket tighter now. Let that sink in. You've been thinking of him as the rescuer who shows up with lightning and fanfare. But what if the real miracle is this? That he's been beside you the whole time, even when you didn't notice? That he never flinched at your failures? That he never rolled his eyes at your overthinking? That he never once left when things got messy? In some ancient Christian traditions, there's a term abiding presence. It's the belief that Jesus doesn't visit occasionally. He stays, not a guest, not a consultant, a companion. And companions don't walk out when the lights dim. They stay, even when the tears come, even when the questions come, even when the sleep doesn't. So tonight, don't try to visualize a throne. Picture a pillow. Picture a Savior who isn't waiting at the end of the storm but sleeping beside you in it. And slowly, steadily, as your breathing evens out and your thoughts start to fade, let that image linger. Him beside you, peace embodied, love at rest. And you're not trying to find him anymore. You're just remembering he was always there. Tonight, we confront the lie that exhaustion equals failure and explore how deep rest is part of your transformation. You've been taught to treat tiredness like a character flaw. Can't keep up? Must be lazy, falling behind, probably not trying hard enough. Can't focus? Must be something wrong with you. So you drink more coffee, make longer to-do lists. Pretend rest is a reward you'll eventually deserve. But here's what no one says out loud. You're not failing. You're just human, and being human means you will reach your limit. Not because you're broken, but because you're becoming. Transformation always involves friction, and friction, it makes you tired. Even caterpillars during metamorphosis turn into literal goo before they become butterflies. Inside that cocoon, they're not resting in luxury, they're breaking down completely. Historians still argue whether the insect retains any memory after transformation. Some say yes, some say no. But either way, the middle part, the messy part, is essential, and maybe that's where you are right now. In the middle part, not what you used to be, not yet what you will be. Just goo, apparently, but sacred goo. Because something is forming in your tiredness. It's not just fatigue, it's remaking, and Jesus sees it. He doesn't say, "Come back when you're polished." He says, "Come now." In your undone state, your liminal space. Your exhaustion is not a spiritual weakness. Sometimes it's the proof you've been growing. Like soil turned over before seeds are planted. Like clay softened before it's shaped. Like hearts cracked open so light can get in. Here's a bizarre but true trivia. Octopuses during certain phases of sleep change colors. Scientists believe they may be dreaming. Let that sink in. A creature with no spine, floating in salt water, still takes time to rest, to dream, to be. You, my friend, are more than an octopus. But even they understand that rest is part of becoming. So let's dismantle the lie once and for all. Tired doesn't mean lazy. Burnt out doesn't mean broken. And needing rest doesn't mean you failed. It means you've been doing something hard. Something holy, and your soul needs space to breathe again. Jesus doesn't just heal the sick and empower the strong. He restores the weary. He lifts the chin of the discouraged. He puts his hand over the hearts of the restless. He reminds you right now that being undone doesn't mean being unloved. It means he's not finished with you yet. You're in the cocoon, you're in the story, you're in the process, and that's enough for tonight. You don't need a breakthrough before bed. You don't need clarity at 2:13 a.m. You need to know that your tiredness doesn't disqualify you. In fact, it's part of how he's preparing you. Think of the disciples again. They weren't rested, well-read, emotionally balanced theologians when Jesus called them. They were fishermen, tax collectors, political misfits. They didn't have it together, but they said yes, even in confusion, even in fatigue, even in failure, and he still called them, still walked with them, still gave them rest. Remember Peter? Loudmouth, impulsive, often wrong. He denied Jesus publicly 3 times, and Jesus still cooked him breakfast afterward, still restored him. Because Jesus isn't in love with your performance, he's in love with you. That includes the part of you that's tired, the version that feels hollow, the version that has nothing left to give. That version, he's already holding it. And maybe, just maybe, he's whispering something new tonight. Let me use your tiredness. Let me turn it into trust. Not because you're weak, but because you're becoming Soleil here, softly, without pressure, without judgment. Let the darkness be a womb, not a grave. Let the night be a holy hush over your process. Let rest be the gift you stop resisting. Not because you earned it, but because he already gave it. We imagine what it would look like to release your burdens, not one by one, but all at once. Let's try something radical tonight. Instead of laying your burdens down one by one like you're unloading a truck full of emotional furniture, what if you just dropped the whole thing? All of it, at once, boom, gone. I know, it sounds impossible. Your mind is trained to cling. You carry anxiety like a purse, regrets like a backpack, guilt like a second coat. You're layered up like it's winter in your soul, even when your room is 76 degrees and the fan is humming. But what if you didn't have to sort it all out first? What if you could just release? Not because you're ignoring it, not because you're pretending it's light, but because you're finally realizing it was never yours to carry alone. Jesus didn't say, "Bring me your burdens after you've labeled them neatly and filed them alphabetically." He said, "Come to me and I will give you rest." He didn't ask for a list. He asked for your heart, and tonight your heart is heavy. He knows that, but he's not asking you to dissect every emotion before you hand it over. He's asking you to trust him enough to let go, even before you feel ready. Did you know that in some ancient Jewish customs, people would symbolically cast off sin or burdens by releasing a bird or throwing a stone into water? It wasn't about the object, it was about the act, a visual cue that said, "This no longer belongs to me." You can do that too, right here in your mind. Close your eyes. Picture everything that's weighing on you: names, decisions, deadlines, relationships, fears, half-buried memories, that one thing you haven't told anyone yet. Gather them in your hands, not perfectly, not all figured out, just as they are. And now, let them fall, not gently, not one by one, all at once. Feel the release ripple through your arms, your chest, your face. That jaw you didn't know was clenched, loosened, that tension in your shoulders, lighter. That is surrender, that is trust. And trust is rest. Historians still debate what Paul's thorn in the flesh actually was: illness, temptation, opposition. But one thing's clear: he carried something heavy, and God didn't remove it. Instead, God said, "My grace is sufficient for you." That word sufficient isn't passive, it's overflowing. More than enough, like grace with a double shot. And maybe you don't need everything fixed tonight. Maybe you just need to believe that grace is bigger than your load, big enough to catch what you just dropped. You don't have to keep carrying this alone. You don't have to be the strong one right now. You don't have to pretend you refine when your soul is running on fumes and self-talk. Jesus isn't looking for your presentation. He's offering you his presence. Right now, not when you get your act together, not when you finally cry, not when you have time to journal about it. Now, in this moment, with your hair messy, with your thoughts tangled, with your emotions half muted, he's here. And when you picture him tonight, don't picture a clipboard in his hand or an eyebrow raised in judgment. Picture open hands. Picture him walking up to your pile of burdens, kneeling down and scooping them up without a flinch. Not because they're small, but because he's strong. You know what's wild? Camels, yes, camels are known for carrying ridiculous weight across deserts. But even camels kneel before they're loaded. It's not weakness. It's preparation. You've been kneeling under the weight of your own desert. But Jesus is the one who walks beside you and carries what you cannot. He's not asking you to be the camel tonight. He's saying, "Let me be the one who carries this for you." So picture him taking it, all of it, not with reluctance, but joy. Because he's not burdened by your burdens, he's drawn to them. And now you lie here lighter. You may still feel tired, but it's a different kind of tired. Not the crushing kind. Not the panicked, world on your back kind. This is the tired that comes after you've laid it all down. And that, my friend, is holy ground. You rediscover a concept as old as Genesis, a sacred rhythm of rest baked into the bones of creation. Before there were clocks, calendars, planners, or do not disturb modes, there was Sabbath, a pause, a breath, a divine exhale after 6 days of let there be, followed by one sacred day of let there rest. God didn't rest because he was tired. He rested to show you how to live. It's baked into creation like gravity, undeniable, inescapable, and often ignored. But ignoring rest doesn't make you strong. It just makes you hollow, and that's what you've been feeling, right? Not just tired in the body, but frayed in the soul. Like a phone that still looks fine, but one T hold a charge no matter how long it's plugged in. You don't need more power-saving mode. You need a full stop, not a nap. Not a weekend binge of a mediocre series you won't even remember by next Thursday. You need Sabbath. Now, before you panic, Sabbath doesn't mean a rigid religious checklist. It means rhythm. A holy cadence that reminds your soul you are not a machine. It's choosing, even for a moment, to stop producing and start receiving. Even God Almighty, infinite, unfathomable, chose to rest. And if he's not ashamed of it, why are you? There's a strange little trivia nugget for you. In the 1930s, the Soviet Union tried to abolish the 7-day week in favor of a 5-day continuous work week to increase productivity. The result? Chaos, burnout, and breakdown, both industrial and emotional. Historians still argue whether the experiment failed due to poor planning or a deeper human need for rest. Either way, the conclusion is clear. Humans aren't built for endless output. You're not a spreadsheet. You're a soul, and your soul needs rhythm. Sleep is nightly surrender. Sabbath is weekly surrender. And Jesus, he's the Lord of both. He didn't just rest in creation, he offered rest in ministry. To fishermen, tax collectors, widows, and warriors, and now to you, right here, in this moment. As you lie in bed, feeling the tug between doing more and letting go, you were designed for rest, not as an accessory, but as a necessity. In the Old Testament, God didn't suggest rest, he commanded it. Not to be a killjoy, but to protect his people from turning into slaves again, this time not to Pharaoh, but to their own self-imposed urgency. Rest is rebellion against a culture that tells you, do more or disappear. Rest says, I am enough, because he is enough. Tonight, as the silence settles in and your body begins to slow, let this be your little Sabbath, a sacred pause in the rush of your week. A whispered reminder that your worth is not measured in checkboxes or calories burned. You're worthy because he made you, and he doesn't make junk. That voice in your head that says, rest is for people who have time, it's lying. Rest isn't about time. It's about trust. Do you trust God enough to stop for a moment? To believe he'll hold it all together while you let your shoulders drop? Even now, as you breathe, he's still spinning galaxies, still orchestrating eternity, and yet somehow still beside you, still whispering, you don't need to be in control tonight. That's my job. In Jewish tradition, Sabbath begins at sundown, not sunrise. That means the first act of rest begins in the dark, when you can't see what's coming, when your hands are empty, when you lie down not knowing what tomorrow will hold. That's faith, and you? You're practicing it right now? This moment right here, right now, is your holy rhythm. No music playing, no stage lights, just breath, just presence. Just you and the God who created time, stepped into it, and now offers you rest inside of it. Let the cadence of the night remind you, you were not built to run nonstop. You were built to pause, to remember, to breathe, to be. Welcome to Sabbath, friend. Even if it's only for these few quiet minutes, you don't have to earn this. You just get to receive it. So rest now, not just with your eyes closed, but with your spirit open. You relive the moment Jesus slept in a storm and consider, if he can rest in chaos, maybe you can too. It's one of those Bible stories you've probably heard so many times. You can quote it, Jesus, the disciples, a boat, a storm, but tonight let's slow it down. Let's crawl into the scene. It's dusk. The sky is moody clouds dragging like wet laundry across a gray horizon. Jesus, after a long day of healing and teaching, says, let's go to the other side. So you all get into the boat. The sea is calm for now, but you feel it. The air has weight, and not the good kind. And then midway across the storm hits. Winds howling like they're mad at you personally. Water slapping the sides of the boat like it's owed something. Chaos everywhere. And where's Jesus? Asleep. On a cushion in the back? Like this is some all-inclusive cruise experience. And the disciples, grown men, seasoned fishermen, are losing their minds. They shake him awake, probably with a tone. Don't you care if we drown? That line always hits deep. It's not just fear, it's accusation, and maybe you've prayed that same prayer. Not with churchy words, just, Jesus, where are you? In the anxiety, in the bills, in the phone call you didn't want to get. And what does Jesus do? He stands up, stretches, and says 3 words peace, be still, and the wind listens, the waves hush, the chaos obeys. Historians still debate whether this was a literal storm or a metaphorical one inserted by early writers to illustrate spiritual truth. But either way, the message holds. Jesus is not afraid of storms, and neither should you be. But here's the twist most people miss. He let the storm happen while he slept. Why? Not because he didn't care. Because he wasn't threatened. He knew who he was. He knew what power he carried, and he knew how the story ended. So he slept. And if he can sleep in chaos, maybe that's your invitation too. Not to pretend everything's fine, not to force peace, but to receive it right in the middle of your mess. You don't need the storm to stop before you rest. You just need to know who's in the boat with you. Here's a strange trivia gem. In Norse mythology, there's a sea god named Tyr who could stir the oceans into deadly whirlpools or offer calm, glassy waters for celebration feasts. Historians still argue whether he represented chaos or peace or both. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? Life is a bit like Tyr's sea, sometimes calm, sometimes chaos, often both in the same hour. And you've been trying to anchor yourself with willpower. But anchors don't work without weight. And tonight, your weight isn't failure. It's faith. Faith that maybe, just maybe, you don't have to earn your way out of every storm. Faith that Jesus doesn't just calm seas, he rests with you until the calm comes. So what if, instead of trying to row faster, bail harder, or control the waves, you lay down too? What if your act of faith isn't shouting louder but sleeping softer? Jesus didn't say, "Come to me and I'll explain everything." He said, "I'll give you rest." You're not being tested, you're being cherished. This bed is your altar, this breath is your prayer, this moment is enough. Let his song surround you, let grace be your blanket. Let the God who sings lull you into holy rest. And as your thoughts start to melt into dreams, remember, you're not doing nothing. You're doing exactly what he invited you to do, rest. One final invitation, lay your head, your heart, your fears down again into the hands that never sleep. You've made it here through the swirl of thoughts, the ache behind your eyes, the weight in your chest. You've heard about surrender, about silence, about a savior who doesn't wait for you to tidy up your mess before stepping into it. But tonight, none of that matters unless you actually lay it down, not just symbolically, not just poetically, but fully. Your head, your heart, your fears, all of it. Because here's the part you might forget sometimes. God doesn't sleep. Not because he's too busy or too stressed or addicted to productivity, but because you do. He stays awake so you don't have to. You don't have to hover over your life like a security guard. You don't have to pace your prayers like a courtroom speech. You don't have to clench your jaw while reciting affirmations at 2:17 a.m. You get to rest. Because he doesn't, and that, strangely, is the deepest kind of trust. In Psalm 121, it says, "He neither slumbers nor sleeps." He watches over you, you're coming and going, you're rising and lying down, not for surveillance, but for safety. You can close your eyes because he won't. You can loosen your grip because his is secure. Let's try something simple. Imagine your burdens, not as bricks, not as anchors, but as children crawling into his lap. Fussy, messy, needy, still loved. You don't have to shove them away. You don't have to fix them before you sleep. You just have to hand them over again and again and again. Did you know that some ancient desert fathers, early Christian monks, would end their day lying flat on the ground, face down, in silence? They called it prostration. Not to earn God's favor, but to practice trust. To say with their bodies, "You are God, I am not. I lay everything down." Historians still argue whether it was healthy or extreme, but the message remains, there's power in posture. And tonight your posture is this, lying back, eyes closed, arms relaxed, jaw unclenched, spirit open. That's holy too. Let the room fade. Let the chaos dim. Let the gentle hum of the night remind you, heaven is not asleep. You are not forgotten. You are not overlooked. You are not too much. You are held. You are seen. You are allowed to stop thinking now. You don't need to rehearse the conversations, calculate tomorrow's decisions, or refill yesterday's wounds. They are safe. You are safe. Right now, just like this, you are enough. Not you after a breakthrough. Not you once you finally get it together. Just you, right here, breathing. Still, that's the version he loves. So let the hands that shaped galaxies carry your fears. Let the voice that calms storms hush your thoughts. Let the arms that stretched across a cross become your bed tonight. And when tomorrow comes, if it comes, you'll face it not as a fixer, but as someone rested. Because the one who never sleeps stayed awake for you, and now you can sleep. Slow now, softer. Let every word stretch out like the light at dawn. You are here, and that is enough. Let your breathing slow, not forced, not deep, just gentle, natural, like waves that forgot how to crash and are finally resting at the shore. The room around you doesn't need your attention anymore. It's okay to let the fan hum, the air sit still, the shadows soften. The thoughts will fade like footprints in water. Let them. You are being cradled in mercy, in kindness, in something ancient and infinite, something deeper than explanation, wider than fear, surer than doubt. You don't have to fight to belong, you already do. You don't have to explain your tiredness, it is understood. The God who shaped you also shelters you. Tonight is not a deadline. It is not a test, it is not a countdown to another round of chaos. It's a gift, a breath between pages, a sacred hush between heartbeats. A night full of grace, so let it be enough, let this be enough. Nothing more is asked of you. Just rest, stay here in the quiet. Let the love that doesn't sleep surround you. Let the peace that passes understanding be your pillow. Let Jesus, the one who never grows weary, guard your dreams. And if your thoughts rise again, that's okay. Just return, no shame, no striving, just return, you are safe. You are loved, you can rest now, end of script. Good night.